Let's do one more on wind, shall we? Wind is one of the biggest scams we've got, other than probably the World Economic Forum, because that's all-inclusive as a scam, and wind is part of that. As expected, energy demand surges, and wind doesn't show up to work. This is Dateline February 7th, 2021, so before this last couple days in Texas, and this is in Minnesota, a source, the Center for American Experiment up in Minnesota. The mercury never got above zero in Minnesota today, causing a surge in energy demand. Now that would be Minnesota. They're kind of used to that, right? For most of us, this probably means our natural gas, propane, and electric furnaces were working diligently to keep us warm, despite the sub-zero temps. While 66% of Minnesotans heat their homes with natural gas, they still need electricity to power the blower fans on the furnace or circulate the steam or hot water through radiators. You still need electricity for that. This means having access to reliable electricity is more important on cold weather days like today than on an average day. The region's coal, natural gas, and nuclear fleet rose to the challenge, but the wind turbines many people uncritically believe can power our lives were nowhere to be found. Data from the grid operator's website shows that wind accounted for just 3.26% of energy demand at the time of this writing. Coal, the evil coal, accounted for 55%. Natural gas about 25%, and nuclear about 15%. That's such a scam. But even worse. Hold on just a second. It's worse. Hey, Texas, winter weather, iced wind turbines, and rolling blackouts. More than 2.5 million people in Texas are experiencing rolling blackouts as temperatures remain in the single digits. The Lone Star State is currently short of electricity because half of the Texas wind fleet, the largest in the nation, is iced over and incapable of generating electricity. Additionally, the natural gas infrastructure in Texas has become so reliant upon, also has frozen up. So natural gas infrastructure has also frozen. The wind turbines have frozen. The solar photovoltaic aren't going to get it. Texas's experience highlights the perils of becoming overly reliant upon wind, solar, and natural gas because these energy sources are not as reliable as coal or nuclear during extreme weather events. Nuclear and coal plants have a distinct advantage in extreme weather conditions because they store a week's or month worth of fuel near the power plant. So as I always say, you think about the Yankee Stadium, all right, Yankee Stadium. If you filled that up to the brim with freaking coal, chunks of coal, all right, that would give you whatever. Off the top of my head, I can't remember how much stored energy that is. But just think about that, all right? The same stored energy to fill Yankee Stadium up with all that coal, you know how much it takes for nuclear? About a golf ball. That's it, a golf ball. That's insane how just intense nuclear is. Now, coal is a hell of a lot more than solar photovoltaic, which is a hell of a lot more than wind as well, by the way. And natural gas, you still got to move it. So that's what we're dealing with. So wind does have effect on a temperature does affect wind. It absolutely does. To say it doesn't is just to be ignorant. And that's unfortunate. A lot of the green proponents are for some reason, they don't mind being ignorant of how this works. So let's find this other one. I want to find another one because there's another article that'll be interesting to you. From February 10th, wind and solar energy don't work. All right, the leftists fantasize that before long we can dispense with all reliable energy sources, coal, natural gas, and nuclear. Even hydro. They hate hydro in California. And run our society entirely on wind and solar, two forms of energy that have been obsolete for 150 years. How can this be since wind turbines only produce electricity when the wind is blowing sufficiently, which is only around 40% of the time. Of course, solar only works when the sun is shining. All right, so today their problem is solved by building natural gas plants that carry the load when wind and solar are AWOL, which is to say a large majority of the time. Of course, the natural gas plants are dispatchable, which means they can produce energy reliably, as long as it's not too cold, apparently, which raises the obvious question. If we have to build fully capable natural gas plants to make wind and solar sort of work, some of the time, what the heck do we need wind and solar for? The truthful answer to the question has nothing to do with the laws of physics and everything to do with the laws of money. But the left has another answer. Batteries. It looks forward to the day when batteries will store the output of wind turbines and solar panels and thereby turn unreliable intermittent energy into electricity you can count on to turn on your lights when you flip the switch. Isaac Orr demolishes the Green New Deal fantasy. One basic problem is that wind turbines don't work when the weather gets cold, which can be fatal in the north, especially when we're experiencing a brutal cold snap. Temperatures are below zero in many parts of the state. That'd be Minnesota. But wind energy is missing in action. According to the data from the regional grid operator, the wind is providing just 1% of current electricity on the grid, and solar just less than 1/3 of 1%. Coal currently, we already talked about, currently accounts for 55%. Not only is wind not producing electricity, but it's also producing only a small fraction, not producing much electricity, but it's also producing only a small fraction of its potential output. There are 22,000 megawatts of wind capacity installed on the regional grid, but these wind turbines are producing only 1,000 megawatts of electricity. In other words, wind turbines are only producing 4.8% of their potential output. Remember we talked about nameplate last video? Temperatures are below zero in many parts of the state, and wind is missing in action. When it gets cold, not only are wind turbines shut down where they don't produce any electricity, they also need to be kept warm. So in cold weather, wind turbines are consumers of electricity, not producers, which looks bleak for the greenies, but their do ex machina is batteries. The battle may appear lost, but vast, infinite supplies of lithium batteries will somehow appear to save the day. Where do we go buy these batteries? Well, they don't actually exist, but someday they will. A recent analysis by the consulting firm Wood Mackenzie estimates there will be about 740 gigawatt hours of battery storage in 2030. 740 gigawatt hours of battery storage in 2030. This amount equates to 741,000 megawatt hours. All right, so we got 741 gigawatt hours. It equates to 741,000 megawatt hours. That might sound like big numbers, but the figures are actually damning evidence that battery storage is an entirely unserious energy proposal. In 2019, the state of Minnesota consumed 72 million megawatt hours of electricity. That's just electricity. 72 million megawatt hours of electricity. This means that the amount of battery storage expected to be in existence for the entire world would be the equivalent of just 1% of Minnesota's annual energy consumption. Now, it looks like they're saying energy. I'm not sure if he's mixing energy or electricity, but he says electricity before. So I don't know. But he says energy consumption, and then he's saying electricity. So I would say that's probably electricity, which means if it's energy, it's even worse. So the state of Minnesota consumed 72 million megawatt hours of electricity in 2019. An analysis by a consulting firm said there'll be 741 gigawatt hours of battery storage in 2030, which is 741,000 megawatt hours. Minnesota consumed 72 million megawatt hours in 2019. How's that going to work? But that's not all. There's more. But not only would the needed battery storage not exist, but it's also incredibly expensive. Current cost estimates for battery storage are about $250 per kilowatt hour, which equates to a cost of $250,000 per megawatt hour. This means the cost of all the expected battery storage in the world would be $185 billion to build, and this doesn't even begin to include the cost of building the wind turbines and solar panels needed to charge it to begin with. And more importantly, don't forget, it's only for that's 341, 741 gigawatts of the whole world. More fundamentally, the $185 billion to just build the batteries that can store 1% of Minnesota's electricity needs. For comparison, Minnesota's GDP is $339 billion, so it takes up half their GDP to store 1% of their electricity. Where the remaining 99% of Minnesota's needs and the need of the rest of the planet will come from, it's anyone's guess, but you can do the math and see that it can't work. Add in the fact that battery storage lasts only 10 years, according to the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, it becomes blindingly obvious that we should instead be focusing on building new nuclear power plants that will come online faster and produce more electricity for a much lower cost. That recommendation is beyond question if the goal is to provide ordinary Americans with cheap and reliable energy without carbon dioxide. But that's not the goal of the environmentalists or the Green New Deal. To be blunt, they couldn't care less about whether peons have reliable access to energy or how much they have to pay for it. A great deal of money stands to be made from green allied companies and utilities. Yep, 100%. It's all a scam, man. Wind energy, all a scam. Batteries, all a scam. Don't be suckered into it. Don't be suckered into it because it's evil, man. People are freezing, literally potentially freezing to death because of the green energy scam. All right, we'll see you.